if you've ever read a good book, um, I'm curious as to what gets you hooked, or even let's say, a TV show. You watch the pilot episode, and it just seems to always be what grabs your attention. Well, let's just talk about week one of the NFL football season. That's chapter one. And chapter one was thrilling, it was exciting, but chapter one is now over, and we're about to go on to chapter two. If you're hooked like I am, you need to tune in here. I'm your host, Matthew Reardon, and this is a Snap Count Show. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Snap Count Show, where I am your host, Matthew Reardon, and with me today, as always, none other than David Street.
What's up, guys?
Ed Smith.
Go Pack Go.
And Thaddeus Lloyd.
Hello.
Well, guys, before I start this show, we are a sports show, and we will always be a sports show. Today, as we film, this is the 24th anniversary of none other than 9/11. I think it's safe to say, even though we are a sports show, we are united, and we will never forget the actions that took place on 9/11. So from all of us here on the Snap Count Show, I just want to, send out our gratitude, our thoughts and prayers for everyone that, was there, witnessed it, and lost family members during that time. We will never forget. But with that being said, guys, I mentioned week one was chapter one here in the NFL season, and we've got several chapters to go. But there were many things, though, that I think really hooked us to this book, to this very exciting season that is going to take place here in the NFL. And, if I were to maybe sum up in just a word or a couple words so far into this NFL season, this chapter one, I would say it's pretty damn thrilling. Okay, last year we were very, we were blessed to have an amazing game last year on week one with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. Well, I think this year topped that. Okay, when we saw just once again the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills, that was such an exciting and thrilling start to the NFL season. Although I know that was Sunday night football, I feel like if that's what to expect of things to come, I'm ready, guys. Strap me up. I am ready for this season because we saw two teams at some of their peak, more on offense. There was no defense in this game. This was strictly offense, almost like a Big 12 shootout game. But we saw Josh Allen being the reigning MVP in action. And our very own Ed Smith, sent us over a text, and he said, talking about Josh Allen, that is MVP type of play right there. Right, Ed?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we anticipate out of Josh Allen, especially after last year. It's just continuing to do the thing.
Yeah, this is such an exciting time to be an NFL fan. If you aren't, I really am urging you to hop on the bandwagon of being an NFL fan, because we are seeing peak football on not just one, not just two, but three or more quarterbacks in the NFL right now. For many years, we were able to see Tom Brady and Peyton Manning really lift the NFL when it came to quarterback play. Now we're seeing Mahomes does still have it in him, but we're seeing Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Shoot, Justin Herbert looked pretty good the other night, guys. This is a great time to be an NFL fan. So if you were to ask me how I thought week one played, yes, thrilling, exciting, and it left me on the edge of my seat wanting to know what comes next. David, how did you see week one?
Well, I thought week one had had everything. You talk about that thrilling 41-40 game between the Bills and the Ravens. And keep in mind, like the Ravens were up big to the point where you thought there was no way the Bills were going to come back. But of course, Josh Allen, being the reigning MVP, put his MVP cap on and put that team on his back as he led them to led them to victory. Right, but overall, I thought it was a decent week one. I don't think there's really a lot that you can tell from week one from like any team because of course, you have teams that were good last year that could be bad this year, and vice versa. You had teams bad last year that could be good this year. So the games were exciting, but I don't put a lot of stock on early week one games because again, it's week one.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, you just talked about how the Ravens gave up 41 points in week one. For all we know, their defense could, not give up 21 points or more the rest of the year because things could just change around like that in the NFL. And week one, you're seeing a lot of guys getting full action for the first time. And what I mean by that is, yes, they participate in training camp and maybe some preseason, but this is a full 4-quarter game that they haven't played since last year. So there are people still working out their rust. We did see injuries. I mean, George Kittle went down. Sorry, Thaddeus. Uh, Brock Purdy with turf toe reminds me of DeMarco Murray. It's just it happens, especially in week one, because a lot of guys haven't had that full contact yet. But Ed, what did you see in week one? Maybe as a Packers fan or just as an NFL fan of how'd you think of it?
Well, the idea that I run into coming out of week one is beware of false prophets, because there were quite a few teams that were playing very equally or below level teams that are 1 and 0 after this first week, and you're going to see everybody hype them up because hey, they're 1 and 0, they're undefeated so far. But these teams are not going to be the teams that we're talking about as we get on through the year towards the end of the year. Namely, we're talking about the Indianapolis Colts. That was a performance that nobody saw coming out of them. Jacksonville comes in after a weather delay and just really takes care of business against Carolina. We see uh, even San Francisco, despite the injuries that continue to plague that franchise and that team, they beat Seattle. There were several games in which we saw versions of these teams that we will not be talking about as we get later in the year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great point. Is yeah, beware of
Yeah.
them, and if you're a fantasy football person, beware of it as well because I I'm not trying to sound like a hater, but I don't think ETN's going to put up those numbers again. Just saying. But just thought I'd put that out there.
Daniel
uh,
Jones, not
Yeah,
so much.
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I,
David.
I will say though, like I think there's certainly more reason to believe that the Niners and even the Jags and who was the other team that you mentioned, Ed?
The Colts.
Or was it the Okay, yeah, like I think there's reason to believe that the Niners and even the Jags could replicate their performance because yes, the Niners had a down year last year, and yes, it is true that I don't have a lot of faith in the Niners as much as like other people do, but I still have them with a winning record, and this is a team that still has its core players, still has Kyle Shanahan, and then when it comes to the Jaguars. Listen, as much as I personally find Liam Cohen to be an utter scumbag for how he left Tampa Bay, I can't I can't deny that he's a brilliant offensive coach. And Tampa Bay had a top five offense in large part because of him. Now, when it comes to the Colts, yeah, that was definitely more so because the Dolphins suck ass.
Yeah, I think we'll be talking about that a little bit more here in a bit. Thaddeus, how did week one play out for you?
It had everything you really wanted. We had almost, I'd say 75, 80% of the games were really close. Every primetime game was just fantastic, each in its own way. Like the first one we got, the first game of the year, Cowboys and Eagles, that one was a lot more competitive than a lot of people would think. Like the Cowboys gave up a good fight. You had the Chargers finally beating the Chiefs for the first time in like 4 years in Brazil in what was mostly a close game. Sunday night game was just an all timer. Probably my favorite game since the Bills Chiefs championship from a couple years ago. That thriller. And probably the best regular season game since Rams Chiefs from like 7 years ago. And then the Monday night game, which was just so weird in its own way, but what a comeback by the Vikings. There were hardly any blowouts, which is kind of on par for the NFL, but even more so than normal. You really only had like the Dolphins blowing or the being blown out by the Colts, which I do think the Colts are a little bit better than people think, but I did have them as a bad record, so it's probably my bad. But yes, it was just a really fascinating week one, and it's only going to get better, I think, in week two. Like, we're going to see those teams start to crop up. The first 4 weeks of the season are the most intriguing and the ones that most in flux. So I can't wait to see what happens this week, too.
Well,
Well, you
and
talk about
oh, you go, David.
oh, sorry, Matthew. Just real quick, you talk about blowouts. I just want to remind everybody that I was the only one in this group who predicted a Packers blowout win. Yes, they quote unquote only won by 14, but the Lions scored a last minute touchdown. We all know that was a blowout game for the Packers.
Yeah, and I agree there, and that's the point I was going to make. Is that there were some odd games in the NFL. I think besides David, we expected Detroit and Green Bay to be a lot closer than it was, and it wasn't. And then and also if you want to talk weird, and it's not much to look into, but Joe Burrow 113 passing yards, against the Browns. I'm not saying against the Browns because they're just so horrible, but you expect Joe Burrow to put up bigger numbers, and he will. But that's a division rival, and it's the first week of the season, which historically the Bengals tend to not do the best. But they did pick up the win, so there are some odd things that do happen in week one, and there are some very exciting, thrilling things that happen. So there's more to it, but. We're done with this chapter. It's time to turn the page, like Metallica says, and on to week two. But actually, sorry, let me backtrack. First, though, let's talk about. We introduced this last week. We're going to do it again this week. And that is the idiot of the week. And this is going to go off of week one. Yes, this is a two-parter because we kind of gave a unanimous vote that Jalen Carter was the idiot of the week before any other games took place. But I think it's safe to say that we have another idiot of the week. And this may be an idiot of the year. And it's not what he did per se that makes it him the idiot. I think it's just his time is done, and the person I'm talking about is not a player, it is a coach, and that is none other than Mike McDaniel of the Miami Dolphins. I'll have Ed talk more here, but for me, I want to say that I just think the experiment is done. It's over with. Miami is just not good. I just don't think they're going to do good, and we saw that. I think in week one against Indy, no one expected the Colts, let alone Danny Dimes, to have a phenomenal game like this, especially after he left New York. But he had a great game. I don't think it's going to continue, but that just shows you just what's happening down in Miami. It's not pretty, and when Sean McVay took over in the Rams, that really started a big trend in the NFL. And Mike McDaniel is one of those that followed suit. I'm not saying it's his fault, but teams just were grabbing for these young coaches that were supposed to be the next big thing. And some of them succeeded. Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, that is success, okay? But not Josh. Mike McDaniel is not a success, and I just don't see it. I like the guy. I really do. I think he'd be fun to play with, but that's it. You're not going to go there to win much. You're going to go there maybe to have some fun and hear some really interesting responses to some questions. But Ed, to you, what makes Mike McDaniel this idiot of the week for us?
Well, he just seems to be very tone deaf to the world around him. because when you put out a product on week one that is that inept, then something is going on behind the scenes that it's got to be changed in some way, shape, or form. I know it's a bit too late to just up and change an entire coaching staff, but it's got to start with the head of the snake, and that's going to be the head coach. And the head coach, yes, he is a great offensive mind, but he's not the leader of an entire team at this point in his career. Yes, they went to the playoffs a couple of years ago, got bounced immediately because they had Skylar Thompson filling in, and it's it hasn't really worked out since then. Yes, they're exciting, and yes, they throw the ball everywhere, and they had the speed demons out on the outside and all these fun offensive things. But guess what? If this were flag football, that would be great. But it's not. This is the NFL, and the NFL does play three versions of football: offense, defense, and special teams. Mike McDaniel, he only cares about offense, and he has made that perfectly clear. It is a very tone deaf idea to go into a press conference and just talk about the fan base like they don't matter to the team when it's the fans that help fund the team that he's coaching. It's it's not like he's at it's not like the fans are asking to make coaching decisions, but the fans, they put their heart and soul into this franchise. They want something out of it. And Mike McDaniel's not going to be the one to give it to them.
Yeah, and Thaddeus, to me, Mike McDaniel is he's the math teacher that they placed to be, the JV football coach because they needed someone to coach the team. And, he's got these algorithms and he is smart, but he's not a coach, just like Ed said. You're a Niners fan. You've got the Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, as well. Why do you think he has failed so far as a head coach?
Well, again, it's really actually hard for coordinators who've grown up in one kind of coaching tree, I'd say, to be as successful as a head coach. And to Ed's point about him focusing on the offense, he did a really good job. He was under Kyle Shanahan for a lot of years actually, and his offenses were pretty good. However, he lacked like the toughness. Has always been a big question of his regime, and I think it's very interesting because the previous Miami head coach was Brian Flores, a really good defensive mind, but when he was head coach of the Dolphins, he really did not care about the offense at all. So then it seems like they've done a 180. Mike McDaniel, like they've got a really good offense now, but then the defense has suffered. There's a reason why Vic Fangio left right out of there after 1 year. He's like, I'm out of here as the Dolphins defensive coordinator. So, yeah, it's just really hard. Again, it's really hard to be a head coach because when you go from coordinator to head coach, you got a lot more responsibilities. And only very few head coaches can do one side of the ball while maintaining the head coaching responsibilities because Mike McDaniel is their play caller, which makes sense. But it's really hard to be the play caller and the CEO head coach at the same time. And it seems he is the offensive, like with many coordinators, like the example I give is Robert Saleh. He is like the offensive version of Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh did a fantastic job with that Jets defense when he became a head coach. Again, another 49er coordinator. He did a really good job with the Jets defense. However, he had not a great time trying to do the coaching stuff, like the clock management and that kind of stuff, the whole team aspect side of stuff. So the offense has suffered in New York as a result of that. And it seems like now more days, I've heard Colin Cowherd talk about it. The league is more offensive coordinated. All offensive coordinators get better chances than defensive coordinators do. However, you're still going to neglect some things as just a pure coordinator and head coach. And I really feel that's what Mike McDaniel's been doing. And it's just at this point, with the toughness aspect and just not been able to be good in November through January, I really think this might be the end for him, at least as a head coach. He's probably best off suited as a coordinator.
Yeah, absolutely. And some are like that. I think Brian Flores is an exceptional defensive coordinator, and that's it, not a head coach. So you just have to learn your lane, and I think that may be it. But David, just really quick before we jump to the next section, is maybe some of it not warranted to him? I mean, you look at who he's had: Tyreek Hill, who's constantly in the headlines, Tua, who is constantly getting concussions. How much at fault is McDaniel for what's happened down in Miami?
Well, it's true that obviously he can't control the amount of times that Tua keeps getting injured, right? And it's also true that from an individual basis, Mike McDaniel isn't responsible for the defense because he's an offensive-minded guy. But at the same time, he kind of is responsible individually for the defense because he's the head coach. He is the one who is responsible for hiring everybody around him, and he obviously has not done a good job of hiring personnel. You look at the Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni. For all the criticisms he's gotten, obviously those criticisms have dropped significantly since winning the Super Bowl. But even so, I think people always gave him credit for is that he always hired good personnel, right? You know, when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl a few in the Jalen Hurts era, their coordinators Jonathan Gannon and the other guy, the guy who leads the guy who's the head coach of the Colts, I don't remember his name, right? Like
Kellen
those
Moore.
were great hires, right? And then the next year, Nick Sirianni makes bad hires, and then he fixes that by making instant upgrades, especially with Vic Fangio at defense, right? And then also, Matthew, you talk about Sean McVay. Well, I think the NFL has a big problem with trends. And what I mean by that is that, coaches, teams, GMs, they will look at how a team does something, whether it's a certain kind of coach they hire or how they run things, and they think, well, if they can do it, why can't we, right? So it's like, well, the Rams have been able to succeed with Sean McVay. Why can't we do that, right? And to me, the only coach, the only team, the only coach that's been able to kind of replicate that success, although not exactly the same, is Matt LaFleur with the Packers, right? But you look at Sean McVay, and the thing that makes Sean McVay so successful is that he has a very driven mindset, and he's utterly passionate about the sport he coaches, right? I remember watching an interview where he was talking to the journalist and basically recapping a random play that either he was a part of, like coaching, or that he played, or whatever it was. But he was able to recap every single detail of that play, and it's like, how the hell do you remember all of that, right? And that's just something that you have to have in you, and that's what has made him so successful. And I'm not trying to say that Mike McDaniel isn't driven. I'm trying to say that doesn't love football. I'm just saying that you have to you can't go with a certain trend just because it works for one team, and I think teams need to stop that.
Yeah, and really quick, because I'm sure Thaddeus will want to say it too, but I'd say Kyle Shanahan is also there too, because 2 Super Bowl appearances, so I think he's kind of up there as well with the Matt
Fair
LaFleur
enough.
and the Sean McVay. So I'm sure Thaddeus agrees with that. But like I said before, that is now the end of chapter 1. We are on to chapter 2 here, week 2 in the NFL, and we've got plenty of thrilling games and storylines with these games. And we're going to talk right about it on this first game here, and that is a Super Bowl rematch in week 2, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Eagles coming off that week 1 victory against the Cowboys, whereas Kansas City and Brazil lost to the Chargers. Uh, who do we think, and I know this is probably dumb for me asking this, but I just want to see if we're all in agreement here. Who needs this victory more, Kansas City or Philly? Ed.
Kansas City, obviously.
I mean, is it safe to say as well, Thaddeus and David, Kansas City needs this win?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
no
because
question.
you look at the NFC East so far in the first week. Yes, Washington seems to be their only competition once again. Where the Cowboys and the Giants, gosh, the Giants, man, they couldn't put up anything to save their life. But it's just week 1. Whereas in the AFC West, I know the Broncos didn't look super shiny, but we saw what they did last year. The Chargers just beat the Chiefs.
Hmm.
So I think that yes, the Chiefs need this victory because if they don't get this victory, they're going to continue to hear that they are on the decline, um, and that's the last thing they want to hear. But how do we see them winning this game? We saw what they did in Week 1, and yes, they do have an injury with Xavier Worthy. I know that he was back practicing, but I don't think he'll be available for this game. But they still have Travis Kelsey, who I know is getting older. They still do have Hollywood Brown, who Hollywood Brown had a lot of targets against the Chargers. So he's another guy that could really fill in the shoes while Worthy and Rashee Rice are out. But Ed, what does Kansas City need to do different this game that they didn't do in week 1? And how do they win this game against Philly?
It's a loaded question, but it typically comes down to the same answer. It's about the offensive and defensive line. They've got to be able to be more physical up front. Andy Reid can scheme all he wants, but if that offensive line doesn't hold up, Patrick has no place to go with the ball. And on the defensive side, if they are not getting the Jalen Hurts through that offensive line for Philly, it's it's going to be a very long afternoon for the Chiefs as an organization, just trying to catch up to the other teams that are in the AFC West.
Yeah, and you don't want to overreact after only just 1 week, but we didn't hear the name Chris Jones often against the Chargers, and that Chargers offensive line not only was injured but dealt with sickness with Becton, but you didn't hear him much. And then Jawan Taylor for their offensive line just was self-inflicting that offense left and right, and they can't have that. I mean, we saw the tension built up with Travis Kelsey as he got in his face. So the Chiefs, you're almost seeing them implode a little bit, uh, but they still got Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, David, right? Patrick Mahomes has shown us time and time again who he is, but is that even going to be enough against this Philly team? I know they didn't have much defense against the Cowboys, but I think it's only time before we start seeing their elite defense again show up.
Well, listen, Patrick Mahomes, for as much as I've criticized him lately, he still has his tendencies to show up in big moments, right? And I just don't see him, not leading his team to great success against Philly here.
Yeah, and I do agree there. And we go ahead and give our predictions here in a bit. But Thaddeus, I'm actually going to turn this over to you to take the floor because in this game there are a lot of stars playing, and with a lot of stars playing, a lot that means they're probably on a lot of people's fantasy teams. Okay, AJ Brown, who I have on mine, week 1, you're dead to me, buddy. But redemption, okay, I am hoping for some redemption. But AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. That's just the Eagles, okay? On the Chiefs side, Patrick Mahomes as well, Travis Kelsey. In this game, if you were to give some recommendations to the fans out there, what would you recommend players you start and sit in this game?
Obviously, I would start Jalen Hurts. He's number one QB number one material. Just had a fantastic game against the Cowboys. Super efficient. Now, AJ Brown, I would bump up his stock a little bit. However, he still would be probably like wide receiver 3, maybe flex. It's still unsure if the Cowboys just did a good job or just who knows. He went to read a book most of the game. They were trying to find him during that delay of the game. So keep Jalen Hurts. Patrick Mahomes is also a very viable option. However, it comes down to the skill group positions. The Chiefs do not trust the running backs. They had a terrible game against the Chargers. No back for the Chiefs had over 30 yards, I believe. Now, the Chargers defense was really good. They continued to show why they were the best scoring defense from last year. So it might be a little bit different. But then again, the Eagles have Jalen Carter, presumably not spitting on Patrick Mahomes this time. Or else I'd have two nickels if that were to happen. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. But if Jalen Carter getting back, I believe, in this game, it should be another really hard stunt to run against this Eagles defense. So they should be up on that. So really the only Chiefs skill guy I would do would be Hollywood Brown, would be the only receiver who I would probably start, especially with Xavier Worthy out for a week or two. And as far as Eagles, obviously Saquon. Now, what's interesting is because during the Super Bowl, Steve Spagnuolo actually did a really good job of limiting Saquon. It was just Devontae Smith and AJ Brown were the problems. So I would actually start Devontae Smith, especially as probably my number one skill group out of the Eagles.
Gotcha. Yeah. So in this game, if you were to give a prediction, you got Eagles or Chiefs winning this game?
After the performance I saw from Week 1, I got the Eagles in this one. Now their Super Bowl was obviously super dominant, and you'll want the Chiefs to seek revenge on that. And I don't believe Patrick Mahomes has lost back-to-back games ever, but this might be the first time because this Eagles defense kind of got embarrassed a little bit by the Cowboys. If it wasn't for CeeDee Lamb dropping a bunch of passes, they could have lost that game. So I believe both teams. Now the Eagles got the win, the Chiefs didn't, but that Eagles defense will want to be better, and I really think they will, especially with the Chiefs almost having no weapons, no running game. Patrick Mahomes will try his best, but this will probably be a lower scoring affair. But I'm going to have the Eagles in a double-digit win. I'm going to go 27-13 in favor of the Eagles.
All right. David?
I mean, I pretty much implied it, but I'm going to go with the Chiefs in victory. I'm going to take them over the Eagles 26-20. Patrick Mahomes, to my knowledge, has never started 0-2 in his professional career, and I just don't see that happening. It could. I just don't see it happening.
Ed?
I am taking the Eagles in this one. There's just too much for the Chiefs to be able to contain as a defense, and be able to try and impose their will on the Eagles defense. So I think the Eagles do come out of this one. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. I'm more in the 27-13 category, just because there's not a lot of offense to go around for the Chiefs. So I've got quite a showing by the Eagles coming in this week.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right, on the head. Is they're kind of picking straws on who's going to be their dynamic player on offense, outside of Mahomes. But the Eagles, what the Eagles do great at is they know how to run the clock. And they're going to continue to do that. I don't think it's going to be, ridiculously high. This isn't going to be like a 41-point game like the Bills in Week 1, but I think that this is going to be dominance by the Eagles. They're just going to have their way. I see it as a 27-17 type of game with the Eagles winning. Yeah, right, David. Yes, he hasn't started out 0-2, but I do believe that he will this year. I just think that uh, we're going to start seeing some of the anomalies happen with the Chiefs that we're not used to seeing because they've been dominant for so long. So give me the Eagles winning this game 27-17. On to the next game. And this is actually pretty big, especially if you watched last week. Thaddeus talked about it. The Vikings with, a great, comeback on Monday Night Football where they end up winning the game. We all heard J.J. McCarthy with pretty much a game-winning touchdown, although I know the Bears scored after, but the game was over.
Hmm.
He is going to be facing off against none other than Michael Penix Jr. Of the Atlanta Falcons. And if you guys don't remember, this is a rematch of the national championship game just 2 years ago. Ed, I'm going to have you take the floor on this one because uh, two young quarterbacks here.
Mhm.
One's got to win. How are you seeing this play on a preview standpoint, and who would you start? Who would you sit in this fantasy matchup?
Well, from a play standpoint, I've got to go with the idea that a quarterback that has played half a season versus one game is probably better equipped to handle what's coming at him. Because JJ McCarthy, we've known and we've been waiting for him to get back on the field because of those injuries that he sustained last year that may had him miss the entire season. And then he starts against the Bears, which, as a Packers fan, the Bears suck. It's flat out. Even if the Bears look dominant for 3 quarters, they're going to mess the bed, and JJ McCarthy put that mess in the Bears' bed and put him right to sleep. So,
And was this your reaction when the Bears won the Super Bowl in '85?
no, because I was 10 years old at the time, and I wasn't. I didn't have almost 40 years of NFL knowledge under my belt.
All right.
So, back to what I was saying. The Vikings, they have weapons all over the field. They still have Justin Jefferson. They still have Aaron Jones. They've still uh, they've still got the other wide receivers that can help out with that, like Jordan Addison, and you know ways of scoring points. Atlanta, on the other hand, they've got Michael Penix that has gotten a little bit of experience now. They've got a dynamic running back that for some reason they can't seem to hand the ball off to. They only pass it to him, and that's Bijan Robinson. And also, uh, they've got their Kyle Pitts. They've got Drake London. There are options out there for the Falcons, but is it enough? Is it enough for a team that has been together like the Vikings? I don't know if it is or not, but that's going to be the cat and mouse game between these two teams. Michael Penix Jr. hasn't really proven that he can beat an aggressive blitzing defense, and that's exactly what the Vikings are going to throw at him. So, how he handles that is going to be the real thing that I'm looking at going into this week to see how well the Falcons do. So, overall, I think there are going to be some plays made by both quarterbacks. If Michael Penix can outplay JJ McCarthy, then the Falcons win. If not, McCarthy is going to be the point guard that just gets the ball to his playmakers and they take off. I'm going to take the Vikings 27-20 on this. And as far as fantasy picks, of course you got to go Justin Jefferson. He is a wide receiver one. I don't care who they're playing against. I would go with Bijan Robinson as a start because of how dynamic he is. He gets you points in so many different ways that he's he's somebody that you can't leave on your bench. But I also feel the same way about Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, he is really what Bijan Robinson is trying to become in my mind, because Aaron Jones has been doing that in this league for so long. He will get you points everywhere. Now, a sleeper pick that I would have uh, for this week is actually Jordan Addison, because the Falcons could put so many resources on Justin Jefferson that it's going to open up the field for Addison to have a monster game. And it's a risky move, but it could really work out for somebody that is just trying to find somebody off of waivers last minute to fill that flex spot for you.
Really quick, Ed, because I like where your head's at, but I could be wrong here, but I think Jordan Addison is suspended through the league right now. So he may not be that this week, but I could be wrong, and maybe something to look up into if you guys want to look it up. But like I said, I like where your head is at, because Justin Jefferson is going to take a lot of attention from the defense. That whoever is next in line is going to be that guy to uh, really score some sleeper points. So I definitely get you there. And these two teams do have a lot of playmakers. Bijan Robinson, what did he do with his first play this last week? Not just a 75-yard touchdown, okay? And Aaron Jones is showing that he has no rust, okay? He's still playing top-tier football. So there's playmakers everywhere here. For my prediction in this game, I am going to actually go with the Vikings. Watching week one, I really feel like J.J. McCarthy really won this team over. I know it's just one game, but this is his first game. He was injured last year, so had a surgery. He's back, but he really won this team over. You saw the excitement there, especially with that rushing touchdown that he had. So give me the Vikings in this game 28-20, actually. David, your thoughts in this game?
Yeah, so my thoughts. Well, I texted a group chat that Ed and I are both in, and I said that JJ McCarthy is ass cheeks. Now I was being a little, little facetious, because I know he's a rookie, but also he was like ass cheeks. And it's funny how immediately after I send that text, JJ McCarthy leads an epic comeback. So, yeah. But as far as the game goes, I'm going to take the Vikings 24-13. And the reason why I think the Vikings are going to win is because I think the way that J.J. McCarthy responded after being down to the Bears really says a lot about who he is as a player and who he is as a leader. That the fact that a rookie was able to lead a comeback like that. I know when McCarthy got drafted, there was a lot of people. There were a lot of people wondering just how good of a player he was. Which, looking back, those questions probably weren't fair, because he was playing in a system that was very run oriented. So he didn't really have a chance to kind of shine as a passer. And not that he was Peyton Manning against the Bears, but we certainly got a glimpse of just the kind of grit and the kind of player that he can be. So yeah, give me the Vikings here. Sorry, Falcons, you're gonna go 0-2.
Thaddeus.
Yeah, I guess it's going to be a clean sweep because you did the Vikings too, Ed, right? Yeah, I got the Vikings too on this. What you said though, Michael Penix has only started 3 more games than McCarthy has. This will be McCarthy's second start. This will be Penix's fourth start. So it's actually not that much difference between the two. Now Penix has looked pretty solid between it, but he's running into an absolute buzzsaw that is the Vikings defense. And I just trust Kevin O'Connell over Raheem Morris. At this point, and overall the Vikings just have a better roster than the Falcons do, honestly. So yeah, just give me the Falcons in this one, 20-14. Guys, are the Vikings 20-14.
Yeah. So these two games that we've talked about so far just aren't just the only exciting games. This next game I'm actually very interested about, because You've got Tampa Bay and Houston. Tampa Bay with a very close victory in Week 1. Houston, on the other hand, they did lose their game. They need to win this week to really shed off some of the critics right now. And David, uh, you are our resident Buccaneers fan, so I'm going to let you take the floor here on this game. How are you seeing it play out, and who are the X factors that you would recommend to start and sit when it comes to fantasy football?
Sure. So the one common storyline that I'm looking at for both teams is that both teams have something to prove. Now I know that sounds confusing, especially for the Bucks, because you might ask, well, what do the Bucks have to prove? They won, didn't they? Well, yes, we won, but we were also very fortunate to escape that game. Because if you actually watch that game, the Falcons were in complete control in pretty much every aspect, from yards to first downs to plays to time of possession. And truth be told, if Koo had not, or is that how you pronounce his last name? Koo. Anyway, if Koo had not missed that field goal, it would have gone into overtime. And with all the momentum that Atlanta had at that point, Atlanta probably would have won the game, right? Credit to my team, and we did what we had to do to win. And then you look at the Texans, and their offense had a horrible game, and C.J. Stroud especially. Now, obviously, I've been pretty low on C.J. Stroud, and it is true, as Ed had mentioned, that last year he dealt with a horrible offensive line, and the offensive line didn't do him any favors either. So I'm not denying that, but here's where it gets interesting, right? Because it wasn't like the Rams offensive line was great as well, right? In fact, Houston applied arguably more pressure to the Rams offensive line than the Rams did to Houston's offensive line, and yet Matthew Stafford still put up a much better game. And now you might say, well, yeah, Matthew Stafford's also a veteran quarterback. He's been playing for a long time. Okay, yeah, that's true. But at some point, it's like C.J. Stroud isn't a rookie anymore. He's not in his second year. Like at some point, the whole pressures, the whole getting banged up argument can only work so much. Um, but yeah, and then as far as fantasy goes, wide receiver number one, I think he's wide receiver of our time, because the thing that makes Mike Evans so great is that he may not, like, how do I say this? He's never going to have a year where he's the clear cut best receiver. But when it comes to consistency,
David, it looks like you're maybe cutting out a little bit here, but Mike Evans definitely has been consistent when it comes to the NFL. It looks like David. It looks like we got you back. Can you hear me?
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, sir. So you were talking about the consistency of Mike Evans.
Yeah. I was kind of going on a tangent there, so maybe that was my computer telling me to shut the hell up. But yeah, start Mike Evans, and then I would bench Bucky Irving, because Bucky Irving had a phenomenal rookie year last year, but there is also that fear that he could have a sophomore slump, and he did not have a great game against Atlanta. And then as far as the game goes, I'm actually going to take Houston, because I think at this point, I think Houston has more to prove than we do. Because think about it, right? It's like if we lose, okay, we're still 500, whatever. But if Houston loses, well, that's going to raise a lot of questions, right? Especially about C.J. Stroud. So I'm going to take Houston in a close one. Give me the Texans 35-33 over my Bucks.
Okay. Thaddeus, how do you see this game playing out?
I actually, in opposition to David's point, I see this as another one like the Rams and Texans game, because the Texans defense, it was both true. Both defenses for the Rams and Texans are excellent. They both have excellent defenses. Now the Rams not so much as far as like their corners go, but the Rams have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. And that did not help at all going against a kind of poor Texans offensive line. So I'm expecting another low scoring game here. CJ Stroud has been doing as much as he can behind that offensive line, but the running backs, Damian Pierce, Nick Chubb's kind of washed now, especially after that injury, and Agumbawale fumbled the game away basically for the Texans. It's just not a great running back room until potentially Joe Mixon gets back. So you've got troubles there. The Bucks survived against the Falcons with a clutch TD from Baker Mayfield to Agbuka. Like I said, the Bucks have also missed some of their offensive pieces, but I think it's going to be just a little bit more enough to get them over the hump against the Texans. So I'm going to have the Bucks winning this one 14-10 in a really low scoring game.
Yeah, it definitely is low scoring. Ed.
I'm very much with you, Thaddeus. It is going to be a low scoring game. I just think that the consistency of weapons for the Buccaneers is what's going to push them over because they know that they can count on those weapons. Houston has a lot of talent and they've got some weapons to work with, but they're very hot and cold as far as being able to show up when they need to. That's not a problem for the Buccaneers at this point. So I'm going to have the Buccaneers at 17-15 as a final score, and Baker Mayfield's just going to be able to drive them down enough to get that game-winning field goal and send them home happy.
Yeah, I'm sure David's, hope that we're all right and he's wrong. Being a Bucks fan, I'm in agreement with Thaddeus and Ed here. I do have the Bucks winning this game, and Ed, you just talked about it. The receiving group that Tampa Bay has is actually phenomenal. Egbuka could be a sleeper for Rookie of the Year. I just think he's that good. And for me, though, I'm in disagreement with Thaddeus and Ed. I think this is going to be a Baker Mayfield type of game where he's just nothing but offense. He's throwing dimes, gunslinging it. Give me the Bucks in this game, 34-17. I think Houston's going to have some things that they're going to need to figure out, and I don't think that Houston starts clicking until Joe Mixon's back, like Daddy has talked about. So, give me the Bucks 34-17 this game. Baker's going to ball out, and I hope he does because I got him as my quarterback in fantasy. Our last game here, because Monday night is a doubleheader, with starting out with Tampa Bay and Houston and ending things with the Los Angeles Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a division matchup here. Both are coming off week 1 victories, where Chargers beat the Chiefs in Brazil and the Raiders did beat the New England Patriots. It did not come, though, without injury, as the Raiders did lose Brock Bowers. I'm not sure if I've seen a full ETA yet on his injury. I do know that it's his knee, and I hope he does have a speedy recovery because Brock Bowers is a very fun player to watch in the NFL. He balled out for them in week 1 despite his injury. But these two teams are at top of their division right now. I know it's only 1 week, but only one of them can win here. And I was just convinced with the Chargers. I really was. If you were to ask me who am I buying in right now after week 1, I'm buying in on the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh is their coach. That right there alone is enough for me to buy into the Chargers. But this is just his second year here back in the NFL. I think he was able to see a lot in his first year back. Now we're going into year 2. He's able to develop Justin Herbert more, and Justin Herbert has needed a coach like Jim Harbaugh, not a Brandon Staley, a defensive-minded coordinator who cannot cut it as a NFL head coach. You have a true NFL head coach with offensive ties who is going to help form Justin quarterback and the quarterback that we know that he could be. So when it comes to this game, I am going to have to go with the Chargers here winning this one. The game is in Vegas. I don't think that's going to matter that right now. Give me the Chargers winning this game. Let's go go 24-10 Chargers. Fantasy outlook here, though, this is where I think it's get interesting. After week one, if you're a fantasy football person, everyone was going to the waiver wire to pick up Quentin Johnson, okay, which could be a great waiver wire pickup. I don't think it's going to be in this game. Give me Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey is one of my favorite receivers in the NFL. This guy has phenomenal route running skills and he knows how to find the open areas. He knows how to read defenses, which makes an excellent wide receiver, in my opinion. Start Ladd McConkey. Do not start Quentin Johnson, because I think that a lot of people are going to be looking at Quentin Johnson on the offensive side. Also, give me Jacoby Myers. Start him, because Brock Bowers going down. The Raiders are going to need another number one right now, and with Brock Bowers out. So Jacoby Myers, he did great already in week one. I expect him to do great things here in week two. And let me start the Chargers defense, as well as Daniel Carlson, their kicker for the Raiders. Daniel Carlson did go 2 for 3 in week one, but he has been a great kicker in his career. So, and I think that the Raiders are going to be kicking a lot of field goals. So go with him. Let's bench Geno, and let's bench the Raiders defense in this game. If you ask me, that's who I'm starting. That's who I'm sitting. Thaddeus, Chargers, Raiders, who you got?
I kind of flip flopped between it, but ultimately I also have the Chargers in this one. Just going with favorites, I guess. I felt kind of vindicated with how good the Raiders' offense was last week against the Patriots. They put up over 400 yards of offense versus that Patriots defense, and now we don't really know how good that Patriots defense is, but it was in a rain game, so I was still impressed. Ashton Genty, though, people were disappointed. He only had like 3 yards a carry or under that, but he still had his first career touchdown, so that was nice. So I really do believe in this Raiders offense. However, the big concern I had with the Chargers was that loss of Matthew Slater, and it seemed to not affect them that much. Moving Joe Alt to left tackle seemed to do just fine. So this Chargers team might be a lot better than I expected without that. So I'm going to take the Chargers in this one. A more impressive win against what we think is a better team in the Chiefs. And yes, I'm also going to take the Chargers in this one. Probably a little bit closer game. I'm going to go. I'm going to go 14-24. 14-24 seems about right for this game. So, yeah. But then also the thing about Brock Bowers, he's day to day, so he could still potentially play. But if you're concerned about it, pick up Michael Mayer, actually the backup tight end for the Raiders. He was their starting tight end 2 years ago before they drafted Bowers, and he was already actually pretty good. It was just they couldn't pass up on a generational talent like Bowers is. So if you have Michael Mayer on your bench, I would start him. He's a pretty good, viable start for this game. And then I would also say don't start Quentin Johnston. Because Keenan Allen is looking like this team's number two. Now he's old. He's 33 years old, but he still could get volume targets because he's such a good route runner still at his age. Probably expect 8 to 10 targets in this game.
Yeah, and he's a very smart receiver too. We saw it against the Chiefs. He knew where the first down markers were. He's a veteran in the NFL. So great outlook there, Thaddeus. David, who you seen in this matchup?
So, excuse me. So I'm going to take the Chargers over the Raiders, and Thaddeus, you mentioned the Slater injury. Well, I think a silver lining that we can see in that is that, well, even despite Slater, Justin Herbert was still able to put on a monster performance against that Chiefs defense. And listen, for as much as the Chiefs have regressed on offense, right, that is still an excellent defense right there. In fact, it's kind of funny how the Chiefs went from being like all offense and very little defense, and then they kind of completely reverse their philosophies where they become a more defensive minded team. So their offense might the offense has been inconsistent lately, but the defense has still been excellent. And Justin Herbert was still able to put up over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns against that defense. And listen, credit to the Raiders for their Week 1 victory. And I think Mike Vrabel is a great head coach. He obviously did great things for the Titans, but we don't know how good the Patriots are going to be. It's probably going to be a rebuilding year for them. So it's hard to put a lot of stock into the Raiders. So I'm going to take the Chargers in a blowout. Give me the Chargers over the Raiders, 47-28.
Huh? Yeah, putting up some numbers. Ed.
The Raiders are one of those false prophets I talked about earlier in this episode. Coming off of that victory against the Patriots, just like you said, David, it's 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 a win that shows up 1-0 in the column, but you got to look at who you're playing at that time. The Patriots are not going to be there this season. They will be eventually. They're just not there now. And when you talk about a Raiders team that has, as weird as it is to say, consistency between uh, Pete Carroll and Geno Smith taking over that offense, they actually have something that they can work together with, and that's how they come out of Week 1 with that victory. But on the other side, the level of competition that the Chargers played up against is not the same level of competition that the Raiders played. And the Chargers came out victorious there, which by the transitive property, if you want to go that route, is the Chargers winning this game pretty handily, in my opinion. More along the lines of 31-13. It is going to be a game in which the physicality that Jim Harbaugh has brought to this team really shows up against the Raiders, and they are going to open up some avenues for the Chargers to really just consistently move the ball down the field and score consistently. And the Raiders just will not be able to keep up with Justin Herbert and company.
Yeah, and interesting enough that you say that because in Week 1 we were fully expecting that physicality and the run because they got all these running backs and they didn't really do it. They fooled all of us. They fooled us here on the show. They fooled the announcers. They fooled the Chiefs because the Chiefs expected the run, especially with the Jim Harbaugh offense. Now I don't know if that's going to happen, so that's why I didn't mention an Omari and Hampton start or any of their running backs because I don't really know yet what they're going to do, but I do know that Jim Harbaugh is known to be physical, so that is something to keep an eye out on. So
Yeah, and then one more thing is we are keeping track of records again, like last year. And last week, starting off the year, I was the only one with a winning record. Not to toot my own horn, but both Ed, Matt, and David went 1-2. I went 2-1. So
Okay.
looks like this week for picks, we're all pretty similar, with only a little bit of variance. So if our teams win, most of us are going to win. If they lose, most of us are going to lose. So we're going to see how it turns out this second week.
yeah, it's going to be quite a ride this season. So I appreciate you, Thaddeus, keeping track of that. So, but that is about all we have today, folks. We appreciate you guys tuning in as you guys always do. Once again, we want to put our thoughts and prayers out to those involved in 9/11 and a lot of other events that may be taking place right now in our country. Our thoughts and prayers will always go out with you. Love your family, give them hugs, let them know that you love them because you never know which day could be your last. So enjoy the time that you have, but also enjoy this show as we like to put it out for you guys. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and let us know your thoughts in the comments and your predictions for these week's games. But till next time, guys, that is the final whistle. We'll catch you next week.